I can't walk, please don't hurt me. The amazing transformation revealed by this single dad. Jake's heart raced as he recalled the echoes of that tragic day, the haunting screech of tires, the gruesome shatter of glass, and the way life shattered into a million painful shards. Sitting in his wheelchair, absent of the strength he once had, he felt like a shadow of the man he used to be. The glares from townsfolk, their whispers about his inadequacy as a father, sliced through him like shards of glass. Every day, they wondered how a man who couldn't even walk could care for a child. But all he needed was to provide for Lily, his 10-year-old daughter whose laughter could brighten the darkest of skies. He glanced out the window of their cramped apartment, watching Lily dart around the yard, her spirit relentless. She climbed trees and swung from branches, entirely unaware of the whispers, the judgments he felt so heavy upon his shoulders. The local diner, once a cradle of warmth, now stung with each reluctant smile directed his way. He was no longer the man who fixed engines and cars, he was now the man who could barely navigate his own life. Was he really less of a father simply because he couldn't run alongside her in the park? The deeper Jake felt these emotions, the more he grappled with himself. As despair threatened to swallow him whole, he pushed the wheelchair along familiar paths. It was on one of those aimless rolls that he stumbled across an old art studio, a relic from his mother's time, untouched since her passing. Dust-covered canvases hinted at a vibrant past, igniting a long-buried connection. Could his mother, the artist who taught him to see the world in color, help him transform the darkness of his life into something beautiful? Fingers trembling, he picked up an old paintbrush, the intense weight of anticipation coursing through him. With each stroke, color poured out, transforming sadness into a vivid spectrum of his emotions. The paintings began to take shape, raw and breathtaking. Slowly, he started to redefine himself through art, but as his work caught the eyes of the community, so did the relentless whispers that haunted him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The local gallery wanted to exhibit his work, offering a thread of hope, yet shadows of doubt laced his excitement. Did they want to empower him or exploit his tragedy for profit? Then, Marcus appeared, an art dealer with captivating charisma, offering contracts that promised security but tinged with an unsettling essence. Jake hesitated, torn between the chance for a better life for Lily and the risk of commercializing his pain. An emotional storm raged within him, amplifying every insecurity. Could he embrace this moment without betraying the essence of his artistry? And as doubts loomed vast, he noticed Lily watching him from the yard, her innocent gaze delivering an electric charge of urgency. She needed him. Could he abandon his principles for her future? Jake felt a suffocating tightness in his chest as he leaned against the wall, a collision of desires and fears so intense that the world around him began to blur. Just when clarity seemed within reach, a familiar face from his past brushed against his conscience, sending shockwaves through his thoughts. What would he choose in this labyrinth of uncertainty, an easier path or one that stayed true to himself? Buckling under the weight of decision, Jake held his breath, caught between love and ambition, poised on the precipice of transformation. The sound of laughter erupted from the yard, Lily's laughter. It rang clear through the stillness of his thoughts, pulling Jake from the depths of his internal struggle. He looked up at her radiant smile as she swung high, casting a small shadow across the ground. In that moment, he understood. This wasn't just about him, it was about providing for her, showing her resilience, and fighting for a future that didn't just echo the pain of the past. Yet, the warmth of her joy didn't dissipate the chilling grip of doubt clenching his heart. Marcus's offers tugged at him, dangling the promise of security like a sweet temptation. But was security worth compromising his integrity as an artist? Each painting he'd poured himself into was a piece of his heart, a testament to struggles he had fought tooth and nail to overcome, and he feared that accepting Marcus's terms might shatter that reflection. Jake rolled his chair back inside, the wheels catching in the rough carpet. He approached the dust-laden studio with determination, each brushstroke beckoning him to lean into the vulnerability he had tucked away. There was an undeniable magic in color and canvas, and he had felt it when creativity transformed his despair into revelation. But now he stood on the precipice of something deeply conflicting. Could he strip down that magic for financial gain? He reached for a canvas already stretched and waiting in the corner of the studio. The surface was white, yet it seemed to pulse with possibilities. Tightening his grip on the brush, he felt the urgency to create, to express an imperative that threatened to overflow if he didn't seize it. As the first stroke of azure glided onto the canvas, Jake felt a sense of purpose wash over him. This was more than paint, this was his showcase of courage, a narrative splashed in hues that had been muted for far too long. The brush danced across the canvas, carving out his fears, and slowly transforming them into a story. His story. Hours blurred into one another as he lost himself in the rhythm of the brush and the language of his heart. Each color revealed layers of emotion he had long suppressed. The self-doubt morphed into a vibrant landscape that breathed life, rather than remaining static in his despair. The more he painted, the more he recognized a part of himself that had nearly vanished. His determination to create, to rise above societal expectations imposed on him. Jake's focus remained unwavering until he sensed movement behind him. It was Lily, peeking into the studio, her eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. Seeing her standing there, awestruck by his work, sent a fresh wave of warmth coursing through him. Could he really abandon his artistic integrity for the sake of comfort, knowing it would dim the brightness in her eyes? The thought ignited a fire within, a challenge to pursue the integrity he valued most. As evening sun poured through the windows, he paused, the canvas before him revealing a unique depth not just of paint, but of emotion, resolve, and the promise of a future he hoped to shape. But rising questions began to claw at him again. Could he do this without compromising the very essence of his colors, or would the allure of practicality overshadow his message? Just as he contemplated his next move, a sudden knock reverberated across the door frame, slicing through the atmosphere he had so carefully crafted. Jake felt the knot in his stomach tighten once more. "Jake! I need to talk to you about the exhibit." The voice belonged to Marcus, an unwelcome reminder of the crossroads he found himself navigating. With an uneasy feeling looming in his chest, Jake took a deep breath, holding tightly to the brush still poised in his hand. The moment had come. How would he choose to respond? "Jake! I need to talk to you about the exhibit." Marcus's voice sliced through the sanctuary Jake had created within the studio. A stark reminder of the fickle line between opportunity and betrayal, it hung in the air like a tightening noose. Jake turned slowly, the brush slipping from his fingers, clattering against the wooden floor. He locked eyes with Marcus, grappling inside with the upheaval of conflicting emotions, the strain of loyalty to his craft juxtaposed against the need for stability. It felt as if the very walls of the studio had begun to close in, echoing the turmoil swirling within him. "Yeah, I know," he replied, keeping his voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty dancing in the air. "What do you want to discuss?" Marcus stepped inside, rubbing his palms together in a show of exaggerated enthusiasm, a distant smile plastered across his face. "I've got a great opportunity lined up. We're gearing up for a big showing, and I want you to be the star of it. We can really make some waves here, Jake. It could be your big break." The phrase "big break" hung heavily in the air. Visions of practical paychecks danced before him, but those visions began to clash with images of his art, raw, honest, and unshackled by commercial expectations. "What's the catch?" Jake asked, his tone sharpening. Marcus stopped in his tracks, confusion flickering across his features. "Catch? It's a fantastic opportunity, Jake. You can create pieces that connect with a broader audience. Think of Lily, she deserves a stable life. This could make that happen." The mention of Lily stung, a sharp reminder of his responsibilities. She was his soft spot, the tender anchor in his otherwise stormy existence, and yet, the thought of diluting his art for broader appeal ignited a defensive fury. I don't want to create art solely for an audience's approval, Jake countered. My work represents my truth, my struggles, my exactly. And that's what will attract an audience in the first place. People resonate with authenticity. But we need to market it right. Think more about what you can gain rather than what you feel you might lose, Marcus interrupted, relentless. As he spoke, Jake stewed in the tension. He paced the dim room, the floorboards creaking beneath him as discontent brewed inside. He could feel the weight of Marcus's words pressing down like shackles, suffocating his creative spirit. Let me show you a few concepts I have in mind, Marcus continued, pulling out his phone to display designs and marketing strategies. Jake's heart raced as he imagined the outcome of succumbing to that temptation. A moment of silence settled between them. Jake's gaze drifted back to the canvas awaiting him, still whispering promises of truth and solace. He took a small step away from Marcus, feeling the brush of independence stir within him. Listen, Marcus, Jake finally said, resolve hardening his voice. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't just mold my art into something else. It's part of who I am. If that doesn't fit into your plans, then maybe I'm not the artist you need. Marcus frowned, disbelief flickering across his features. Are you really willing to turn down an opportunity like this? For what? A few brushes and paints? The confrontation hung in the air, a fork in the road that sent shockwaves through Jake's psyche. He could choose the safety of financial gain, a conventional life for Lily, or he could uphold his tenets as an artist and teach her to pursue passion fearlessly. No, Jake stated, the edges of his decision becoming clearer. I'd rather fight for what I believe in, even if it means risking everything. As the fervor of the conversation simmered, Jake recognized something profound. The fire ignited within him was a beacon for his future and Lily's. The struggle was not only an external conflict but a journey inward, a reclamation of self. Standing firm, he found his voice, a surge of clarity breaking through the haze of his doubt. If you're not on board with that, then maybe we shouldn't continue this partnership. Marcus stared at him, disbelief overshadowing his comic bravado. Jake, Marcus chuckled dryly, you really think you can go alone in this? You're playing with fire. Then I will learn to navigate the flames, Jake replied, staring steadfastly into Marcus's eyes, feeling the weight of every promise he had made to himself and Lily coalesce into his words. As the tension hung thick in the air, a new certainty emerged. One thing was clear, stepping away from Marcus could lead him into uncharted waters, but the reward of discovering his own truth felt more dangerous and exhilarating than anything else he could imagine. Just as Marcus opened his mouth, preparing to lash out, Jake turned his back, feeling both dread and exhilaration pulse through him. He needed time to reflect, to dig deeper into what this meant for his future, and the choices he was about to make could redefine everything. The echo of Marcus's voice faded away, replaced by the primal call of the canvas where clarity awaited him. But with that clarity loomed another, more pressing question for Jake: what would his next move be, and was he truly ready to embrace the full spectrum of possibility that lay ahead? Jake stood in the stillness of his studio, the air charged with both the residue of the confrontation and the whisper of brush strokes waiting to be unleashed. Clarity was both exhilarating and terrifying. With Marcus gone, a vacuum existed, an invitation to explore his authentic self untethered by commercial constraints. He moved to the canvas, its surface blank and full of potential. The space beyond it felt infinite, beckoning him to confront his feelings head-on. He dipped the brush in vibrant red, allowing the color to represent more than paint. It was his raw emotion bleeding through. He needed to express the conflict churning within him, a reflection of the duality he now faced. As he started to paint, every stroke became an exploration of his inner landscape. He covered the canvas with abstracts that embodied his tumultuous thoughts about success, loyalty, and the weight of responsibility. Each swirl and mark became a chapter of his unfiltered experience, a cathartic release that reaffirmed his identity as an artist, not just for his own sake, but as a lesson for Lily. The meditative rhythm of his movements invited clarity, yet threading through his creativity was an unsettling question: how would he provide for Lily without the commercial backing he had previously resisted? This realization dragged the fire of inspiration into the dark shadows of doubt. Could he truly sustain them both as an artist? While layering textures, a thought struck him: he had avoided galleries and commercial opportunities for so long out of fear that they would stifle his voice. But if his art spoke truths of his struggles and aspirations, perhaps it was time to pivot. He could create pieces that resonated with the market while still embedding his authentic soul within every brushstroke. This perspective shift ignited a spark within him. He wouldn't compromise his art for validation, but he could infuse it with a purpose that connected to the wider world. He could educate himself on marketing without sacrificing his voice. This thought brought a new determination. Reading and researching how successful artists balanced their integrity with commercial viability became a new objective. Hours passed as he painted furiously, lost in a moment of transformation. Ink and paint splattered across the floor, a testament to rebirth. This focus anchored him, momentarily blocking out the nagging fears about practical matters. One artist could inspire another. Perhaps if he exemplified perseverance and craftsmanship, he would teach Lily resilience through action. Wiping sweat from his brow, Jake leaned back to observe his work. It wasn't finished. It couldn't simply be a collection of colors on a canvas, but a testament to everything he had declared moments before: his truth coupling with his newfound resolve. Feeling brave yet apprehensive, he decided to reach out to others: fellow creatives, mentors, anyone who could offer insight and guidance. It was high time he formed connections within the artistic community. He would need allies as he navigated this transition and its challenges. With his heart racing, Jake opened his laptop amidst the paints drying around him. A slew of emails and messages awaited him: artists, local galleries, even art communities he had previously shunned. The act of reaching out felt like a risk, a leap into a deep cavern of uncertainty. As he typed, the potential for collaboration electrified him. These weren't just transactions, they could serve as valuable perspectives. Each word typed served as a flutter towards a future he hadn't fully articulated yet, a space where integrity met opportunity. The realization hit him hard: the vulnerability he felt was an acceptance of his growth. He might not have all the answers, but he had a path opening up. Each connection would help shape his trajectory, empowered by a mission to not only create but also to inspire. Feeling a surge of hope blaze within him, he realized the path forward was rife with potential if he chose to walk into it. As he hit send on his last email, he recognized the irony of it all. He was standing at the very edge of what could either crumble or rise into something magnificent. And yet, despite the excitement coursing through him, a question hung heavily in the air: would the world be ready for the art of Jake Mitchell, and more importantly, would he be ready for what that newfound visibility might demand of him? Jake woke the next morning feeling the echo of determination reverberate in his chest. The moment of vulnerability he had encountered the night before hung closely with him, both a comfort and a weight. He rolled from bed, glanced at the canvas still alive with his best efforts, and a grin tugged at the corners of his lips. The impulsive choice to reach out to other artists was more than a leap, it was the launchpad for the evolution he needed. With Lily still asleep, he decided to use the early hours constructively. After brewing a strong cup of coffee, he opened his laptop once more. The daunting task of learning marketing terms and strategies loomed over him, yet as the pages loaded, a sense of purpose enveloped him. If he was to thrive, he needed tools, and this digital realm was bursting with insights. As he delved into articles, he quickly discovered the vast landscape of social media, something he'd historically dismissed as shallow noise. Yet, time and again, he found artists who transformed their platforms into vibrant galleries of authenticity, engaging directly with audiences who sought meaning in their art. The notion was liberating yet intimidating: could he open up that way? With reluctance illuminating his internal dialogues, Jake envisioned the possibility of sharing not just polished artwork but the raw stories behind them: the struggles, the growth, the moments of defeat turned into moments of victory. The realization dawned on him: the world was ready for vulnerability if he was. He resolved to post a photograph of his latest canvas along with a short reflection on his journey so far. He imagined all the unsaid anxieties surrounding the fragility of a single father navigating his dreams while balancing parental responsibility. With each keystroke, he released more than just words, he relinquished the grip of hesitation that had long punctuated his creative existence. After taking a deep breath, he hit post. The immediate wave of apprehension surged over him. What would people think? Would they understand his struggle, or would they ridicule his authenticity? Before he could second-guess himself, a flurry of alert notifications shocked him into a new reality. It wasn't ridicule that followed. His phone buzzed insistently as comments and messages rolled in, each one expressing appreciation for his honesty, his challenges mirroring the experiences of so many. He felt a flutter in his heart. This was community, albeit virtual, but nonetheless real. Just as he began to grasp the community burgeoning around him, an email caught his eye. A gallery owner he had previously contacted wanted to discuss featuring his work in an upcoming exhibit. His pulse quickened. It was one thing to paint and post, but entirely another to exhibit his creations on a formal stage. The opportunity was both exhilarating and petrifying. The prospect ignited a flurry of emotions within him. Could he deliver? Would his art resonate with a broader audience, or would it fall flat under scrutiny? Each question stewed in his mind, catalyzing both determination and doubt. In a fit of clarity, Jake decided to embrace the challenge head-on. He would not overthink, he would prepare for that meeting by committing to learning everything he could about the art world. He started drafting notes, outlining key points he wanted to make about his work, its emotional depth, its connection to struggles faced both personally and universally. As he curated his thoughts, a shadow of self-doubt crept in again. What if he failed to articulate his vision? What if no one saw the beauty embedded in his raw storytelling? The high stakes of exposure and vulnerability clawed at him. It was time to confront this growing fear. The question wasn't if he could endure the scrutiny, but rather how he would rise above it. With a newfound resolve coursing through him, he viewed the wide digital display of his journey. This wouldn't just be about him anymore. It would be a testament to the undulating journey of self-discovery that entailed every brushed stroke and every entrepreneurial endeavor. And as the day began to wane, he pondered the fragility of what lay ahead. Would he have the fortitude to stand ear to ear with potential critics and claim his narrative? The meeting loomed, promising a confrontation with both external and internal critics alike. He understood this was not merely about art, it was about harnessing his power and proving, above all, that he was worthy. The moment of truth was creeping closer, and Jake felt the weight of what he had yet to confront. Would he emerge as the artist he envisioned or transform back into the shadows of doubt? The tension mounted, the answer swirling within the canvas of possibility he had painted but had yet to fully unveil. Jake spent the remainder of the day in a whirlwind of thoughts, each one pulling him further down the rabbit hole of what could be. He felt utterly exposed, as if every whisper of doubt was an unseen spectator, eager to define him before he had the chance to step into the light. Each moment leading up to the meeting felt like preparing for a duel. His art, his passion, and his deepest insecurities stood in his corner, while his anxieties hovered like a storm cloud, threatening to choke his resolve. Tension had a way of sharpening focus, though. Jake transformed his fear into preparation. He spent hours reviewing the email he received from the gallery owner, feeling as if every word was cloaked in an invisible challenge. He meticulously researched the gallery's past exhibits, dissected the styles and themes they embraced, and noted how they resonated with their audience. With each piece of information absorbed, he began to weave a narrative of his own, drafting what he would say, how he would express his journey both as an artist and a father. But lurking under his meticulous planning was a gnawing sensation. Had he underestimated what this moment truly symbolized? It would not simply mark the formal introduction of his artwork to a broader audience, it was a manifestation of his life, etched into each canvas he painted. Every brushstroke represented a step he had taken toward hope, despair, learning, and growth, and now he would have to share the stories beneath those strokes with someone who held the power to define his next chapter. As he sank deeper into his preparations, flashes of vulnerability surged within him. What if he faltered? What if the gallery owner found his art lacking in substance, too steeped in personal struggle to relate to a more established audience. The night before his meeting unfolded in agonizing slow motion. The house was quiet except for the soft, rhythmic breathing of Lily, deep in sleep. Jake sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by his notes. Hours passed without him realizing it, and finally, fatigue collided with fear. He lay back on the couch, staring at the ceiling, and thoughts raced wildly. He pictured the gallery, the lights, the people, the glances of judgment waiting to dissect his every intention. Did he have the right to share his story? But in an unexpected twist of clarity, he recalled the comments on his post, each one a lifeline acknowledging that there was strength in authenticity. Perhaps it was time to embrace that very essence. His art was the bridge between his experiences and others. This thought propelled him into a newfound reckoning. Jake needed to understand that vulnerability was interwoven with strength, something he had overlooked in his journey. His heart began to race, not from fear anymore, but anticipation. Morning came. The day of the meeting was upon him, and as he dressed, Jake took meticulous care to select an outfit that communicated confidence while embracing his artistic flair. He stood in front of the mirror, eyeing his reflection. What stared back was not just a single father preparing for a critical meeting, it was a man ready to own his narrative and redefine his story. With Lily at school, he took a moment to breathe in the stillness of the home. Each breath felt like the canvas waiting to be filled with bold strokes of his journey. And just as he was about to leave, a new message pinged from his phone. Another artist in his newfound community reaching out for advice, sharing their fears about stepping into the limelight. Jake's heart surged. This was precisely why he needed to pursue his art. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the connections, the shared experiences, the courage to navigate the vulnerabilities they all carried. As he stepped outside, ready to confront whatever awaited him at the gallery, the gravity of the battle ahead crystallized. It was larger than him, reflective of a collective journey, yet deeply personal. He moved forward with determination. The time had come to face not just doubts and critics, but the most crucial challenge of all, his own hesitations and fears, shackled in layers of self-doubt. Would he finally emerge from the shadows and step fully into the light of his artistic destiny? The answer loomed just ahead, waiting to be unveiled. And yet another thought pierced through his resolve: what if his boldness not only liberated him, but others as well? With this rising determination, he walked toward the gallery, the air thick with anticipation. The moment beside the canvas was at hand, and it promised to be both exhilarating and terrifying. What awaited him behind those doors might just change everything. As Jake crossed the threshold of the gallery, the atmospheric weight of the anticipation hit him like a tidal wave. Bright lights cascaded down from the ceiling, illuminating the curated artworks draped across white walls, each piece a testimony of its own. The vibrant colors intensified his sense of trepidation. They were a stark contrast to the monochrome feelings swirling inside him. He had envisioned this moment in countless ways, yet the reality bore a striking indifference to his imagination. He approached the reception desk, where a young woman flashed an inviting smile but seemed oblivious to the tempest gripping Jake's stomach. "Welcome. You must be Jake," she chirped, motioning for him to follow her into the adjoining exhibition room. Every step felt heavier, his sneakers a physical reminder of the weight of expectation. As she led him deeper into the space, he found himself wrestling with self-doubt. He forced himself to breathe evenly, reciting a mantra in his mind: this was just a conversation about art. That familiarity should be a comfort, but instead, it felt like a stage where he was expected to perform. The gallery owner, a poised woman with sharp features and an aura of authority, stood near the large windows overlooking the street. She adjusted her glasses as Jake entered the room. "Ah, Jake. I've been looking forward to meeting you," she said, her tone laced with genuine enthusiasm and curiosity. Jake managed a smile, but inside, the butterflies instinctively took flight again. "Thank you for having me," he replied, his voice steady but quieter than he intended. "Let's start with your pieces." She gestured to the canvases leaning against the wall. As he walked closer, he could feel the intensity of her gaze, flicking between the canvases and him. The narrative he had crafted in his mind flitted away amidst lingering self-judgment. Did these pieces truly reflect his journey? Were they powerful enough to captivate her? With a deep breath, he turned to face her, his throat tightening slightly. Each canvas tells a story, one that intertwines my experiences as an artist and as a father, he began. The words flowed slowly at first, but as he spoke, he allowed the weight of his vulnerabilities to seep through, letting her in on his struggles, painting a picture of his past struggles and victories. She listened intently, nodding thoughtfully, occasionally scribbling notes on a notepad. An unexpected energy began to surge through him. The act of voicing his narrative knocked gently at the self-imposed barriers he had fortified over the years. There was an unexpected power in sharing his journey not just with her, but with himself. He pointed at a piece shielded in deep blue hues. This one represents a moment in my life when I really felt lost. It's almost like I was submerged, and I had to find a way to surface, he continued, allowing himself to linger on the necessity of that revelation. Sharing these emotions made them feel lighter, almost as if becoming part of the art he bared to the world. Remarkable, she said, and a flicker of something profound passed across her face. You have a clear voice, Jake. I can sense the depth of emotion behind each stroke. For a moment, his heart soared. Perhaps he was beginning to connect the pieces not just for her, but for all that he had sacrificed and fought for over the years. As their conversation unfolded, Jake felt a palpable shift. The gallery owner posed questions, digging deeper, encouraging explorations he hadn't anticipated. He discovered insights about his own work and values he hadn't fully acknowledged before. With each dialogue, he unearthed a version of himself, the artist, unfiltered and unapologetic. But that eagerness came with a faint whisper of fear. What if she wasn't the ally he hoped for? What if she felt certain pieces fell flat, or the emotions he was beginning to uncover weren't enough? Jake swallowed hard as he prepared himself for the critical moment. Can I ask you something? He finally said, the question tangling in his throat. Do you feel you understand where I'm coming from with this? Can you see the potential? A tension-filled silence followed, and in that moment, he realized this wasn't just about one person's validation. It bore the weight of his journey towards self-acceptance. Yes, she replied, a confident smile overtaking her features. But what I really want to know is how far you're willing to go with it. Jake blinked, her words electrifying the air between them. The question hung heavily, its implications unfurling a new layer of realization. How could he push the boundaries of his own art and his own fears? As he began to unravel those possibilities, Jake's thoughts raced. Perhaps the most salient transformation awaited him, one that tied his fears and aspirations together. But even more daring was the understanding that he hadn't even scratched the surface of his potential. Would he be able to break the final shackles that bound him to his past? The gallery owner's final inquiry glimmered like a catalyst, guiding the very direction of his artistic quest. How far could he truly go? Jake's heart raced as he absorbed the weight of her question. How far was he willing to go? It echoed in his mind like a hypnotic chant. He felt a heavy mix of excitement and terror igniting inside him. This was more than an invitation to explore his craft, it was a challenge laid bare, exposing the raw edges of his fears. Let us find out, he replied, almost instinctively. The words shaped a bridge from his insecurities to an uncertain but exhilarating future. Even as he spoke, a flicker of doubt resurfaced. Who did he think he was? A single dad dabbling in art, suddenly poised to break boundaries. Yet deeper than that doubt lay a glimmer of truth. He had been wrestling with this vision for too long. With newfound resolve, Jake leaned in. I want to explore the darker themes. The things we often don't talk about, the cracks in our facades, he said, surprising even himself. It was as if he had peeled away a layer of protection, unearthing facets of his artistry he had long kept buried. The gallery owner regarded him with an intensity that felt both intimidating and reassuring. That's a powerful direction. But you can't just skirt the edges. You'll need to dive into your past in a way that resonates with others. Her words lingered in the air, a call to action. Would he be able to muster that courage? What skeletons lurked behind his closed doors? Jake's mind shifted rapidly through images of his past, moments marked by shame and regret. He thought of fatherhood, the struggle of nurturing a child while pursuing his dreams, the gnawing fear that he was not enough for either role. "I'm nervous," he admitted, the admission surfacing, unexpected but freeing. "There are things I can hardly face myself." "Good," she said. "That nervousness means you're on the right track. Artistic authenticity is rooted in vulnerability. It draws people in. But it requires a level of honesty that not everyone is willing to share." With that, the challenge crystallized. He needed to unpack those emotions, face his fear of discovery, and translate them into art that pulsated with raw truth. The vision flickered before him, seductive yet daunting. Could he transform his struggles and fears into vibrant strokes on a canvas? As they continued their conversation, Jake sensed a shift inside himself, mirroring the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly. The exploration of his work began to feel less like a demonstration of skill and more like a soul-less excavation. Each piece he created had represented a part of his journey, but now he wanted them to transcend personal sentiment and provoke thought in others. Suddenly, the notion of inviting criticism didn't feel like defeat, but rather an opportunity for growth, a way to refine his vision. He wanted to share not just his success, but the efforts it took to rise from his failures. The gallery owner leaned closer, her eyes narrowing with a blend of contemplation and challenge. "You'll need to confront your past, Jake. Have you thought about how you'll do that?" Caught momentarily off guard, he considered her question. It felt like an invitation to delve into a territory he had avoided for too long. I think I'll start with my most vulnerable experiences, the sense of inadequacy I often felt," he said, a tremor of uncertainty threading through his voice. "Good. That's a beginning. But don't stop there. After all, art is about exploring depth, even if it unearths uncomfortable truths." Her insight echoed around the room, and Jake felt an unsettled thrill ignite within him. This wasn't just about painting. It was about confronting fears that had long held him back. He could see the direction forming transformative storytelling as a means of personal liberation. As they continued to discuss potential themes and techniques, a strange juxtaposition washed over him. There was fear and vulnerability, yes, but also the intoxicating promise of liberation. It was time to shed the weight of past expectations. He could not let fear dictate his narrative any longer. "I want to signify that transformation is always possible," he said suddenly, a vehement fire igniting in his chest. "I want to show others that even in moments of darkness, there's a way to rise." A flicker of admiration sparked in her eyes. "That's the spirit. It will attract people, and those connections are what art truly thrives on." As Jake finished recounting his thoughts, he felt like a sharpened pencil finally put to paper, a dynamic mixture of uncertainty and revelation coiling around his heart. The questions lingering in the air were sharp, dangerous, each one exposed the raw canvases of his life experiences waiting for paint and intention. Now, Jake stood on a precipice, a gap that separated who he was from who he wanted to be. He hadn't yet decided how far he would go, but he sensed he was on the verge of something significant. He needed to confront his past, summon courage to embrace pain, and propel his art into the world. Just when he thought he was ready to forge ahead, the gallery owner smiled slyly. "But remember, Jake, art is also about exploring the unknown. Sometimes it's in the dark corners that real revelations lie. Are you prepared to see those shadows?" With that, the weight of her question infused a new layer of urgency. What lay in those shadows? And was he truly ready to face whatever awaited him beyond the light? Jake left the gallery, a whirlwind of thoughts swirling in his mind. The weight of the gallery owner's words echoed within him, exploring the darkness, confronting his past. He could almost taste the fear, and it mingled with exhilaration. The air felt charged as he walked briskly to his studio, the small space where he normally found refuge and increasingly felt like a battleground. Once inside, he hesitated. For the first time, the blank canvases before him were not just silent witnesses, they were frontiers of discovery. Each stroke he had previously laid down seemed dull in contrast to the vividly challenging visions emerging in his mind. Anxiety rippled through his body, but he pushed it down, transforming it into resolve. He pulled up a chair and sat amid his art supplies, letting the chaotic colors and textures inspire him anew. Grabbing a brush, he started with bold, uncontrolled strokes, colors clashing violently, revealing an inner tumult that was not only felt but seen. He was not just painting, he was beginning to excavate, to bring to light the darkness that had haunted him all these years. As the paint flowed, memories began flooding back, not as misty past events, but as tangible scenes he could relive. He recalled his son's laughter, which once rang through their small apartment yet sometimes felt like a reminder of all he'd sacrificed on the altar of ambition. There was joy intertwined with guilt, each laugh reminding him of the time he spent away chasing his unfulfilled dreams. Each stroke became a cathartic release, allowing him to process the duality of his existence. Suddenly, a sharper memory pierced through a vision of his late wife. How she had encouraged him to pursue his passion, often at the expense of their togetherness. Her voice, tinged with support and sadness, echoed in his mind, "You can't let fear hold you back, Jake. Go for it." In that moment, he sensed her presence beside him, guiding him deeper into this creative journey. Tremors of vulnerability coursed through him as he wrestled with conflicting emotions. Who was he to delve into discomfort when he had often hidden from it? Would his portrayals resonate, or would they clash with the expectations set before him? Yet, he found refuge in the fact that vulnerability could bloom into truth that had the power to transform not just himself, but perhaps others too. The mural he was creating started morphing into an abstraction of his internal battle. He mixed colors representing despair with tones of hope, weaving them together into a narrative of growth. Here he was, a father, an artist, grappling with shadows, yet infusing them with light. It wasn't perfect, and that was the whole point. It was raw, alive, and authentically him. But just as the exhilaration of creation began to surge forward, a chilling thought darted through him. What if this revelation alienated him from those he yearned to connect with? What if his pain was too raw for them to understand? What if they couldn't see the vibrant hues beneath the darkness? He closed his eyes momentarily, breath hitching. Maybe there was an element of selfishness in baring his soul. As he took a deep breath, the single profound realization hit him with the force of a storm. Every great work of art bore the fingerprints of its creator, heavy with emotion, fair and true. Each encounter with seemingly insurmountable obstacles created pathways to clarity. As the last brushstroke found its place on the canvas, Jake found himself anchored by a newfound clarity. The fear of rejection was only a small price to pay for authenticity. He understood now that authenticity breeds connections. His art needed to shine a light into those dark corners, creating a conversation about fear and failure. Just as he stepped back to view his creation, the gallery owner's voice rang out in his mind, "Are you prepared to see those shadows?" With a resolute nod, he accepted that the journey ahead would not be easy. These shadows may still loom over him, but now he possessed tools to confront them. Before he could second-guess himself, Jake picked up his phone, a trembling adrenaline surging through him. The gallery was waiting for his response, and he had an obligation to rise to the challenge. But what would that response entail? As he tapped out his message, a sense of trepidation washed over him. Was he ready to unveil not just his art but the truth behind it? What if the very act of sharing his demons opened entirely new doors, revealing depths he never anticipated? The moment hung heavy in the air, pregnant with the promise of transformation. Jake stood in front of his latest canvas, heart pounding and mind racing. The colors blended seamlessly, each stroke a manifestation of everything he had faced: the shadows of loss, the bright specks of hope, the complexities of fatherhood woven into his identity as an artist. It was a moment of clarity. He hadn't anticipated, a commitment to both his art and himself that felt like stepping into the light after years spent in the shadows. He recalled the gallery owner's encouragement. Her faith in him stirred something deep within. Art is about exploring depth, she had said. It draws people in. He was ready now, not just to create, but to share his journey with the world. This canvas would not merely depict his struggles, it would invite others to experience them alongside him, aiming to evoke understanding and connection. In an act of defiance against his lingering fears, he pulled out his laptop and connected to the gallery's email. With fingertips hovering above the keys, he took a breath and began to transform the swirling anxieties into words. He would express his vision, one of vulnerability, rawness, and authenticity. "Dear gallery owner's name," he typed, infusing each word with a commitment to transparency. "I'm eager to embrace the opportunity to exhibit my work. I want to delve into the stories behind each piece, exploring themes of loss, strength, and the resilience of the human spirit." As he crafted the email, he contemplated his journey as a single dad, the countless moments spent caring for Lily while wrestling with doubt. Those fears challenged him but ultimately molded him. By the time he clicked send, a liberating rush coursed through him, almost as if he had exorcised his demons onto the digital page. Stepping back from the screen, Jake felt the weight of his past begin to lift, replaced by something exhilarating and new. His art, his statement, could spark dialogues and connections he had craved but feared. He envisioned Lily, sitting in front of his canvas one day, her innocent brow furrowing as she sought understanding of her father's struggles. He wanted her to feel empowered by his journey, to know that strength came not from perfection but from grappling with imperfection. His phone buzzed with notifications. A ripple of responses flowed in from the artistic community he had begun connecting with. Each one was a testament to his emerging presence, validating his experiences while pushing him further into the spotlight. Individuals demanding he share more of his narrative, users wanting to join in his artistic exploration. The world was responding to authenticity. It was a humbling realization that he wasn't alone in his struggles, others were eager to share their stories too. He rolled to his workspace, inhaling the aroma of freshly mixed paint. The act of creating took on profound meaning now. Every brushstroke was a defiant step into his truth, every splash of color a declaration of resilience. He envisioned his art hanging in that gallery not as an isolated expression but as a bridge connecting others to the shared human experience. Over the following weeks, he meticulously prepared for the exhibit. Jake attended workshops, immersed himself more deeply in community dialogues, and even began documenting his journey on social media, a visual diary of the struggles and triumphs that shaped his work. He felt invigorated, not just as an artist, but as a father who could demonstrate the importance of facing one's fears. Finally, the day of the exhibit arrived. Jake stood before the gallery, heart racing with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. As the doors swung open, visitors flooded in, drawn not just by the art, but by the story they sensed unfolding within each piece. When he walked among the crowd, responses floated around him, whispers of recognition, gestures of understanding, strangers engaging with his art as if it resonated with personal echoes of their own lives. For the first time, he felt seen not as a disabled single dad, but as an artist and storyteller. Lily, beaming beside him, pointed at a canvas splashed with hues of deep red and sunlight yellow. "It's like you're telling us we can be strong even when things are hard," she exclaimed, her voice filled with pride. Jake's heart swelled. "Exactly, kiddo. It's about embracing our truths, not hiding them away." To see that recognition reflected in Lily's eyes affirmed the journey he had walked. As the night unfolded, Jake received an outpouring of praise and inquiries about his work. It became clear this wasn't merely about showcasing art, it was about inviting others into a shared experience of overcoming, hope, and relentless pursuit of dreams. The exhibit would become a celebration, a symbol of profound transformation not just for him, but for all those who dared to confront their fears. In the weeks that followed, as more artworks left his studio than ever before, he came to appreciate the beautiful paradox of vulnerability. Putting his struggles on display liberated him and resonated in the hearts of others. Jake was not just an artist, he had become a beacon of personal achievement, tirelessly confronting life's shadows with colors of resilience. His journey had shifted from one of self-doubt to solid confidence. He had achieved not only recognition as an artist but also established a deeper connection with his daughter. And as he rolled through the community one fine afternoon, a sense of satisfaction washed over him. He had proven to himself that rising from adversity was where true strength lay, a truth not only reflected in his art but enshrined in the relationship held so dear between a father and his daughter. Now, with every brushstroke, he accomplished what he had once thought impossible, transforming struggle into a story that would last, fostering a legacy of ambition, connection, and the power of living one's truth boldly. Stand tall, pursue your passions, and face your fears. You have the power to redefine your narrative, just like Jake. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories, and leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel you love.